Poch, he's on the edge, LB. He's on the edge of losing his job.
And rightly so. I really struggle, and it really triggers me, man. And I do get rattled about this. This manager, I just don't get it. I just don't understand why there's so many people that love to defend him. I don't understand why so many Tottenham fans still defend him. Yes, he done all right. He made Spurs a top 4 club. He still didn't win anything. Let's be honest now, if you look back at that Spurs team, it was actually mega. It was mega, and they won nothing. Oh, they got us to a Champions League final. Didn't win it, so it doesn't really matter, to be honest. Like, he played good football at Spurs. He did well to get them Champions League every year, but ultimately he failed. Did he get backed enough as he should have done? No. But he still should have won at least something. A Carabao Cup. Anything. He didn't win nothing, man. Do you know what I mean? He goes to PSG. Doesn't really do well at PSG. If you actually look into it and do the research, doesn't really do well at PSG.
No.
He's come to Chelsea, and let's be honest, he's got a pretty easy job. No one expected him to win the league. Some people might have had expectations on them to get the top 4 because obviously the amount of money that he spent. But what did they finish last year? Like 11th, 12th, something like that? Like, even if he would have got them up to 7th, playing semi-decent football, people would have probably gone, most reasonable people probably would have gone, well, they've got all these new players in. They've been in a bit of turmoil. He's got them from, 11th, 12th, whatever it was last year, to 7th, got them back in Europe. You can see progression there. Then next season, 2024, 2025 season, then the aim has to be to at least get back into that top 4, if not challenge, because of the quality of the squad. And what's he done? He's still in the bottom half of the table, I think, or 10th or whatever. He got them to a final. Granted, they played quite well in the first 90 minutes, but then he absolutely got his tactics horrifically wrong when he took off Jackson, because that allowed Liverpool to push up the pitch and Chelsea had no runners in behind. That basically killed the game. And it's got to be one of the most embarrassing defeats Chelsea have had. Liverpool had 4 academy players on the pitch. This guy ultimately, right, no matter what you say about what he did with Spurs, if you actually look at his record, right, this guy loses the big games. Yeah? The only 2 finals he's ever won were at PSG. He lost a final whilst he was at PSG, by the way. Just put that one out there. Yeah, FA Cup, got to 2 semi-finals with Spurs, lost them both. Carabao Cup, he got to a final with Spurs, lost. He got to a semi-final with Spurs, lost. He got to a final with Chelsea, lost. Yeah, if you check his European record, equally poor. Yeah, got to a final with Spurs, lost. I got to a semi-final with PSG, lost. Yet there's people out here that want to defend this guy. And I just really, really struggle to understand why people are so quick to defend him when he's actually not achieved anything in the game. I just don't expect, and like I say, I'm not expecting this guy to go into Chelsea this year and tear up trees. Yeah, I was setting him quite low expectations. You got £1 billion squad. I'm expecting you to take the team from 10th to 7th, maybe 6th at a push. And maybe try and implement a proper style. I just don't get why people are just so quick to defend this guy when he's really not achieved anything in the game. And you've got people like Hussam trying to tell me that he's the 3rd best manager in Europe behind Klopp and Pep.
Oh my God!
Give it a rest, man. Give it a rest. This is just. What about Carlo Ancelotti? What about Simeone? What about Zidane? What about these managers that have actually achieved something and have got silverware, proper silverware, and have won the most difficult leagues, the Champions Leagues? Come on, man. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. It really is. You get people out there want to defend this guy, and by the way, I'm hoping that there's not, but it was only a year ago that there were City fans out there that wanted Poch as our manager after Pep Guardiola. Now that's pretty much gone. But if there is any City fans out there that want Poch after Pep, you need to give your head a wobble, yeah, because this guy does not achieve anything in the game.
Dan, how much of that do you agree with?
I agree with the majority of it. It's mad because Sam and I were actually going to and fro on this not too long ago, and I was with LB saying, "Look, the Poch just ain't good enough." And he sort of said to me, "All right, how many of these Chelsea lot are you taking?" And I struggled to answer it, if I'm honest. I struggled to answer it because the players need to hold a massive L as well, right? But if we actually look at it, whether you think it's Poch or the players or both, the whole football club is an absolute embarrassment. The whole football club have spent over £1 billion in the last few seasons, and they look absolutely dreadful. in terms of their mentality, in terms of their quality, in terms of the playing staff, in terms of the ownership structure, in terms of the board and the togetherness and the understanding of how to put a team together to win something. This has been how not to run a football club by Chelsea. This is what it's been. And I can't compare it to anything, Tel. I laughed when Tottenham wasted the Gareth Bale money and 95 million. We all did. This is a different level. This is like this times 10. This is a squad that they've wasted, not just a few players that we can laugh at trying to replace Gareth Bale. This is absolutely embarrassing what we're seeing. Now, in terms of Pochettino, when he was at Tottenham, I thought he did a good job. But I didn't think he did a world-class job. I didn't think it was elite management. I thought he did a good job. He got he got Tottenham to a Champions League final, and he allowed them to compete. When you look at, like LB says, at what the squad was doing and what the team was right there, it was actually quite a good 11. It wasn't a world-class squad because that's what let them down, essentially. But actually, the first 11 was pretty good. But it still come third in the league when it really should have been competing with Leicester. Arsenal allowed Arsenal to come second that season, because they bottled it at the end. And like LB is just given, I'm not going to repeat what he said. The guy has failed in pretty much a lot of stuff that we need him to do. So a lot of Tottenham fans got really, really like gassed and got really overexcited about it and over hyped how good he was, I feel. And now it's being proven. He's gone to Chelsea. I don't quite know what he's trying to do with some of the tactics. I have no idea what he's doing with some of the positions he's putting players in. So some of that definitely you can come under criticism with. But actually, let's look at that side. How many of them are you having? Not many. There ain't many you're looking at going, God, I'd love him at my club. He looks a baller. I mean, look at this talent. He looks absolute. There's not many. And I like Caicedo, and I think Enzo's a good player. But right now, they ain't showing it. Yeah. Mudryk, what is he, please? What is that thing? What is that? That is not a footballer. Well, apparently he's better than Martinelli, according to Don, from what I hear. I mean, this is me and Don will be having words, man. I'll tell you this now. Because if that is better than Martinelli, he needs to look at his actual ball now.
I love Don to bits, but Don is as delusional about Chelsea as Ty is about Arsenal. And it all comes from a good place.
It does.
But it is blind love. It is absolute blind love and he's really smart with it, Don, because he'll never say the words Mudryk is better than Martinelli. But he says everything but that. But everything, he alludes to it and applies it all the time. Exactly. And it's. I agree with you. Look, on the players, I think there's a number of those youngsters that are either not as good as we thought or are not cut out for the Premier League. Of course, you have to look at the manager and the system and the structure at the club. I'd be a hypocrite to say this, ignore that, and just focus on the players because the club has been run. And I thought they were getting some things right with who they were appointing. I thought, oh God, they must know what they're doing. And they're taking all these experts from all these clubs that are doing so well. But they've almost tried to mix the kind of Leipzig, Brighton approach, but throw big money at it. And you couple in the expectations of Chelsea and the whole thing has come crumbling down. But on Poch specifically, and this is not defending the players or the way the club is run, I did expect them to play better football, more consistent football. The question marks were whether or not he could win. I don't think even the biggest detractors of Poch believe they would play this badly. And yes, there's moments in the game where they do some good things, but I'm starting to believe more and more that's the quality of some of these young players as opposed to Poch's system. That extra time period, I'm still angry about it. I'm not a Chelsea fan, but it made me angry. I looked at it and I think Gary Neville summed it up brilliantly on his podcast last night. And I think it's probably easier to speak about than we all went live straight after the game. But he said he was looking at it from the perspective of someone that's been a pro, who was young. And what you tell young players and what you tell teams is you seize moments, you seize opportunities. You go out there and you walk away with no regrets. And if Chelsea attacked Liverpool and lost on the counter, they went for it. It's the fact they sat down, they laid on their back, they got their bellies out, and they let Jurgen Klopp tickle it. That, for me, just as a sporting person, as a football person, I find it infuriating. And I think that's a outright sackable offence. It should have been, I wouldn't have even allowed him to collect his loser's medal. I would have said, you're done now. We'll pay you extra to not even take that medal. Get out of the stadium. Get an Uber back to wherever it is you live. I don't want you in this football club. The weak mentality demonstrated by him, Chelsea haven't been accustomed to that. Even though they weren't winning league titles, they were winning trophies my whole life. Chelsea had. They've always been a team that's tried to win. They've always been a team that's gone for it, whether they were good enough or not. Watching that was an absolute abomination. And I'm taking nothing away from Liverpool, because they deserved it. But that extra time period, I think is going to haunt Chelsea. I agree with Jamie Carragher. I think the big blue £1 billion bottle job tag, I don't think that's leaving them for a long time. Well, until they win, this group wins a major trophy, it won't just, and it's too much of this current group go. That's going to, just like the Spice Boys, as Jamie Carragher pulled out from the 90s, it's never going to go away. Never going to go away. I think it was that much. It's a weird thing. We've all seen our teams get slapped. I've lost 7-0, lost 6-1 to City. We've seen Arsenal take beatings. I feel like what they did is almost worse. Something about it just feels worse to me because you had it in your hands and you just went, there you go, Liverpool, you have it. It was a madness to me. It's crazy.
It is one of, if not the most embarrassing final performances, particularly extra time performances I've seen. You can forget the missed chances that happens in games. Yeah, trust me, I know about that. Even up to the last few weeks at Arsenal, when we were missing chances ourselves and frustrating ourselves, they missed a hell of a lot of chances, Chelsea. But that extra time performance was a shambles. And his interview at the end, well, we, playing for penalties and all this. I'm sorry, if that's me and that's my manager saying that, I'm done, man, and I want him gone. And I just think for me that there's a lot of Chelsea fans that are hoping, not believing. They're hoping that the money that they spend is just going to one day come good. They'll spend their way to the top. But you got to have a plan, man. The people in charge of this football club are a mess. And I just can't understand fans like Don and some of the others. Not just Don, by the way. I'm not piling on Don because I love Don. But you've got to just wake up sometimes and go, do you know what? Maybe some of these players aren't as good as I thought. Maybe this manager ain't as great as I thought. And maybe this process is just not going to work by throwing money at it. Because look at what money Man United and Arsenal have spent. You look in the last decade at what we've won and look at what we spent. It don't match up. Yeah, so it ain't about Chelsea spending their money to the top because sometimes that don't work. So for me, if I'm a Chelsea fan right now, I'm scratching my head, seriously worried, thinking, how are we getting this club back to what it was? Because this last 2 decades, wow. I wish I would have, appreciated it a bit more because it ain't going to be around the corner, I don't think, for Chelsea anymore.
Do you know what's really funny? I was saying for years, even at the end of the Roman era, spending without a real structure and a plan is no good in the modern era because everybody's got money now. And when they first got new owners and they kind of outlined their plans, and it was to keep spending like Roman, but to have a really solid structure. Again, on paper, I was like, that's what a worry to me, because if Chelsea spend like Roman did, but with a modern day plan where there's a club philosophy and a style of a type of player and a particular type of manager, as opposed to just having the most, essentially when they could spend unlimited, Chelsea, they put together one of the most amazing cores in British football history with your Czechs, and Terry was already there, but they, Lampard, Drogba and the like. They put together this brilliant core. And that saw them right through pretty much until they won their first Champions League. And a lot of people never do this. If you look at all of Chelsea's trophies under Roman and look at how many were won before FFP came in and how many were won after FFP, there is a clear divide. The fact they haven't challenged for a league title now since 2000 and was it 17 when they last won it? 16, 17? They haven't challenged for a league title in the best part of a decade. It is crazy. So I think Chelsea fans are struggling, especially some of the younger ones, because they've only ever known Chelsea to be brilliant. And the way like Ches and I get you defend your club, but the way like Ches and Don and a lot of Chelsea fans that come on talk about their club still, it's like, bruv, you ain't that team anymore. That isn't you anymore. You're not them guys. And you sort of laughing. I know you can always laugh. Again, you can always criticize other clubs. If you're on a show like the Terrace, where we talk about other teams, just because your team's doing crap doesn't mean you can't criticize another team. But I do think you have to hold back on the banter to a certain degree, because it only really works if you're in a position of kind of like in a position of authority from a banter hierarchy. But the way they kind of talk about other clubs, I'm like, but equally always defend their own to the hill. I find, and it isn't just those two, it's across the board. And I think some Chelsea fans still think they're in the Roman era and it's all going to be okay soon. And they might in the summer buy 2 or 3 experienced players, bring in a new manager and recover from this position. But if they don't get it right this next time and they spend big how they did, with all the financial issues that all the financial experts keep telling us about, I don't know how they recover, especially with City, Liverpool, Arsenal all being run so well and being rich. Spurs right now, question mark still whether they'll continue to improve. You've got the Villas and you've got Newcastle had a poor year by the new standards they've set, but Newcastle's owners ain't going away. This isn't that they're going to have one bad year and disappear. Like, it's going to be hard for Chelsea, genuinely, if they don't get it right this summer.